Crunch time in veepstakes as Kamala Harris prepares to choose running mate. Running mate decision likely to come down to who can have the hard conversations, a former aide says. Faces one of the biggest decisions of her political life over the weekend as she enters the crucial last stages of picking a running mate who can help her win and defeat the looming authoritarian threat of Kamala campaign raises 310M in July as presidential race is transformed. Just 2 weeks after being suddenly thrust into the political spotlight and onto the top of the ticket after decided to step aside amid concerns over his age, campaign has triggered a burst of enthusiasm among. Polls show her recovering much of the ground on that had lost. But her choice of a vice presidential candidate presents a thorny problem she must solve to keep her momentum and satisfy as much of the often fractious base as possible. Harris's choice will come down to who can have the hard conversations, a former aide-turned-senator said as the veepstakes neared their conclusion. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to who can she have a relationship with, who can have the hard conversations with her, like from Told the. This is somebody she's going to have to see on a fairly regular basis for the next 4 years if elected. And you got to do more than just tolerate them. There has to be some genuine like and care and a good vibe. Butler advised in 2020 when she ran for the presidential nomination. That campaign ended swiftly, but then a senator was picked for vice president by. It is a notoriously thankless job, memorably deemed by who served under not worth a bucket of warm piss. Harris's time in the role has not been smooth, but historic decision to step aside for a younger candidate transformed her fortunes in an instant. Heralding huge fundraising and surging voter enthusiasm is closing the gap in polling, nationally and in battleground states. In some recent national polls, she has even opened up a narrow lead. In ordinary campaign years, vice presidential vetting and selection takes months, from the end of the competitive primary process in spring to the late summer turn towards Election Day. It is a notoriously intense process, aides combing through the personal, public, and financial lives of possible candidates, hunting for any whiff of scandal. Now, in a campaign operating at political warp speed and with fewer than 100 days to go till polls open, is set to complete her search in 2 weeks or less. Her campaign has refused comment, but interviews and records requests supervised by the former Attorney General were reportedly complete by. The contenders to be named before a joint rally in Philadelphia on Tuesday were widely reported to include 4 governors of Illinois, 1 senator and 1 member of cabinet, the transportation secretary. All are white men, reflecting the belief that though may be ready to vote for a first woman and second non-white president, many would be less keen to back a ticket featuring 2 women or 2 people of color. Those on shortlist have said little. Some cleared their schedules for the weekend. Citing anonymous sources familiar with schedule, the said she had blocked off several hours to meet with the men being considered. Bryan, who managed campaigns for Attorney General, told the paper she would consider the best traits and life experiences and job experiences to fill that position. 3 possible picks were widely agreed to have moved to the fore. Kelly is a former Navy combat pilot and astronaut who was elected to the Senate in 2020 in a battleground state and is married to a former congresswoman who survived a shooting and now campaigns for gun control. Walz, a former teacher and National Guard sergeant, is a popular progressive governor who has led the charge in calling and his own running mate, the senator too weird and extreme to rule. Shapiro governs a battleground state and enjoys high approval ratings from us. Like, he is a former